On July 18, 2019, a tragedy struck the heart of Japan's anime industry. Kyoto Animation, one of the most beloved animation studios in the world, was set on fire in a senseless act of violence. The attack claimed the lives of 36 people, injured 33 others, and left an irreplaceable mark on the anime community. This video aims to shed light on what happened that day, the people affected, and the lasting impact of the incident. We will also explore the story of Kyoto Animation, its legacy, its contributions to the anime industry, and how it has continued to move forward despite unimaginable loss. Before diving into the tragic events of that day, let's take a moment to understand the significance of Kyoto Animation, often referred to as Kyoto Ani by fans. Founded in 1981, Kyoto Animation became renowned for its high-quality animation, heartfelt storytelling, and a company culture that valued its artists like family. Unlike many other studios, Kyoto Ani offered its animators stable, full-time employment, setting a new standard in the industry. From heartwarming slice-of-life anime, like K-On!, to emotionally moving masterpieces like A Silent Voice, Kyoto Animation's works have touched millions of fans around the world. But on that fateful day, the studio's legacy was shaken by an act of violence no one could have foreseen. The attack on Kyoto Animation was not just a loss for Japan. It was a loss for the global anime community. Fans, creators, and industry professionals worldwide came together to mourn, support, and honor the victims. In this video, we will take you through the events of that day, the investigation, and the impact this incident had on the future of Kyoto Animation. Let's begin. To understand the impact of this tragedy, it's important to know where it took place. Kyoto Animation Studio 1, located in Fushimi Ward, Kyoto, was the heart of the company's creative work. It was where talented animators, directors, and staff members brought beloved anime to life. Unlike many other anime studios, Kyoto Animation prioritized a positive and supportive work culture. It provided fair wages, proper training, and a workplace that fostered artistic growth. Many young animators dreamed of working here, making it a symbol of hope within the industry. But on July 18, 2019, this peaceful creative hub became the target of a brutal attack. The perpetrator, a 41-year-old man named Shinji Aoba, set the building on fire, leading to one of the deadliest arson attacks in Japan's history. So who is Shinji Aoba? Born in 1978, Aoba had a troubled life. He struggled with mental health issues and had a history of violent behavior. In 2012, he was convicted of robbing a convenience store and sentenced to prison. After his release, he lived in isolation, moving between internet cafes and public housing, unemployed and disconnected from society. Aoba later claimed that he had a deep grudge against Kyoto Animation. He falsely believed that the studio had stolen his novel submission for a contest the company had organized. However, there was no evidence that Kyoto Animation ever used his work. This delusion, combined with his personal struggles, fueled his rage and led him to plan a horrific attack. In the days leading up to the incident, Aoba meticulously planned his attack. He traveled from his home in Saitama to Kyoto, purchasing 40 liters of gasoline along the way. He even scouted the Kyoto Animation studio before returning on the day of the attack. Determined to carry out his violent plan, little did the employees inside the studio know that their ordinary workday would soon turn into a nightmare. The events that followed would leave a deep scar on the anime industry and the world. Thursday, July 18, 2019. It was a normal summer morning in Kyoto. Employees at Kyoto Animation Studio 1 arrived at work, preparing for another day of animation production. Inside the three-story building, 70 people were engaged in their daily tasks, completely unaware of the horror that was about to unfold. Meanwhile, Shinji Aoba was making his way toward the studio. He had traveled over 500 kilometers from Saitama to Kyoto, carrying 40 liters of gasoline, a lighter, and several knives. His mind was set on destruction. Around 10:30 a.m., Aoba reached the front entrance of the studio. Without hesitation, he opened the door, stepped inside, and shouted, "Die!" He then splashed gasoline across the reception area, and immediately set it on fire with a lighter. In an instant, the entire first floor was engulfed in flames. The fire spread with terrifying speed, fueled by the gasoline and the studio's wooden interior. Thick, black smoke filled the air, making it nearly impossible to see or breathe. Within seconds, panic took over. Some employees attempted to flee through the front entrance, but Aoba stood in their way. Others rushed upstairs, trying to escape the inferno, only to find themselves trapped by the thick smoke and heat. The studio's layout became a deadly trap. The fire quickly reached the staircase, cutting off any escape route. Employees on the second and third floors had nowhere to go. Many tried to make their way to the rooftop, but the door leading outside was locked, leaving them with no means of escape. Some workers desperately broke windows, hoping to breathe or signal for help. Others attempted to climb onto the ledge, but the thick smoke and heat were overwhelming. In just minutes, the temperature inside the building rose to deadly levels, and oxygen levels dropped dangerously low. Tragically, most of the victims died from carbon monoxide poisoning before they could escape. The smoke was so dense that even those trying to flee became disoriented and lost consciousness. After setting the fire, Aoba attempted to run away, but he didn't get far. The flames had caught onto his clothing, and he suffered severe burns all over his body. As he collapsed on the ground near the studio, bystanders and police officers rushed to the scene. When police confronted Aoba, he reportedly muttered, "They stole my novel." His misguided belief that Kyoto Animation had plagiarized his work had led to this unimaginable tragedy. Meanwhile, firefighters battled the raging fire. It took over 5 hours to fully extinguish the flames, but by then, the damage was already catastrophic. 36 lives were lost, and 33 others were seriously injured. This was the worst arson attack in Japan since World War II. The world mourned the loss of these talented artists. But the tragedy was far from over. What followed was an intense investigation, a long road to justice, and a community that refused to give up hope. Minutes after the fire broke out, emergency calls flooded Kyoto's fire department. At 10:35 a.m., the first fire trucks arrived at the scene. But by then, the flames had already engulfed most of the building. Thick black smoke poured out of the windows as desperate employees attempted to escape. Firefighters quickly set up ladders and worked to rescue those trapped on the upper floors. Some employees had managed to break windows and were clinging to the ledges, struggling to breathe. Others were found collapsed near staircases, overcome by the toxic fumes. Despite their rapid response, the intensity of the fire made rescue efforts extremely difficult. The high temperatures, combined with the dense smoke, forced firefighters to take extreme caution as they entered the burning building. They pulled survivors from the wreckage, many of whom suffered severe burns or smoke inhalation. Meanwhile, medical teams treated the injured at the scene, before rushing them to nearby hospitals. Many of the victims had suffered critical injuries, with some requiring immediate surgery. Among the injured was Shinji Aoba himself, who had sustained severe burns covering 90% of his body. He was taken into police custody, but required months of medical treatment before he could be interrogated. Over 5 hours later, at 3:19 p.m., the fire was finally extinguished. What remained of Kyoto Animation Studio 1 was a charred, skeletal structure, a heartbreaking sight that left the nation in shock. The final death toll stood at 36, with 33 others injured. Many of the victims were young animators with bright futures, their lives cut tragically short. As news of the attack spread, the world reacted with grief and disbelief. Fans, industry professionals, and animation studios worldwide expressed their condolences. Vigils were held, and messages of support flooded in from across the globe. But even in the face of such devastation, Kyoto Animation's story was far from over. The investigation into the attack had just begun, and the fight for justice was about to unfold. Minutes after the fire was extinguished, investigators arrived at the scene to determine what had happened and why. The scale of the destruction was overwhelming, with the entire building reduced to a burned-out shell. Forensic teams worked tirelessly to recover bodies and gather evidence from the wreckage. Authorities quickly identified the suspect as Shinji Aoba, who was found near the crime scene with severe burns. Witnesses reported that he had shouted accusations against Kyoto Animation, claiming they had stolen his novel. However, an initial investigation confirmed that his submission had never passed. The first screening of Kyoto Animation's writing contest, making his claim baseless. Due to the extent of his injuries, Aoba was placed under intensive medical care. He suffered burns covering 90% of his body, and required multiple skin graft surgeries. He remained in critical condition for months, during which authorities debated whether he would even survive to face trial. In May 2020, after nearly a year of treatment, Aoba was officially arrested and charged with murder, arson, and other serious crimes. Despite being in a wheelchair and requiring medical assistance, he was deemed fit to stand trial. When questioned, he showed no remorse, stating that he had acted out of revenge, and that he never expected to survive the attack himself. The trial of Shinji Aoba began in September 2023, drawing immense public and media attention. The key legal question was whether he was mentally competent to take full responsibility for his crimes. Prosecutors argued that his actions were premeditated and calculated, pointing to his detailed planning, purchase of gasoline, and direct targeting of Kyoto Animation. The defense, however, claimed that his mental illness played a role in the attack and pushed for leniency. As court proceedings continued, survivors and the families of victims shared heartbreaking testimonies. Many spoke of their pain, the dreams that had been lost, and the lasting trauma caused by the attack. Kyoto Animation's employees, though devastated, also expressed their determination to rebuild and continue creating the art that so many loved. The verdict and sentencing of Aoba would mark the final chapter in the legal battle. But for those affected by the tragedy, the scars, both physical and emotional, would never fully heal. The Kyoto Animation arson attack sent shockwaves through Japan and the global anime community. As news of the tragedy spread, an outpouring of grief and support flooded in from around the world. Fans, industry professionals, and animation studios expressed their condolences, with many sharing memories of how Kyoto Animation's works had touched their lives. In the days following the attack, makeshift memorials appeared outside the studio, covered with flowers, messages, and artwork dedicated to the victims. People from all walks of life visited the site to pay their respects, leaving heartfelt notes and offerings. The overwhelming support showed just how deeply Kyoto Animation's work had impacted people worldwide. The anime industry responded swiftly. Studios, voice actors, and production companies united to show their support, with many launching fundraising initiatives. Sentai Filmworks, a US-based anime distributor, organized a crowdfunding campaign that raised over $2 million to help support the victims and their families. Kyoto Animation also received donations from companies and fans across the world, with the total amount exceeding 3.3 billion yen. In addition to financial aid, there was a growing call for justice and remembrance. The Japanese government reviewed security measures related to the sale of gasoline, implementing stricter regulations to prevent similar attacks. Discussions about workplace safety, fire escape protocols, and mental health awareness also gained prominence. Despite the immense loss, Kyoto Animation vowed to continue. The company's president, Hideaki Hata, expressed his deep sorrow, but also his determination to honor the victims by keeping their creative legacy alive. Instead of rebuilding Studio One on the same site, Kyoto Animation announced plans to turn the land into a memorial, allowing families and fans to have a place to remember those who were lost. Slowly, the studio resumed operations. In November 2019, Kyoto Animation released Violet Evergarden Eternity and the Auto Memory Doll, a film that had been completed before the attack. The release was met with an emotional response from fans, many of whom saw it as a symbol of the studio's resilience. In 2021, Kyoto Animation's first post-tragedy film, Violet Evergarden, the movie, was released to critical acclaim, proving that the studio's spirit remained unbroken. The attack on Kyoto Animation was a devastating loss, but it also highlighted the strength of a community that refused to let hate destroy something beautiful. The world came together to support Kyoto Animation, ensuring that the legacy of the victims would not be forgotten. The Kyoto Animation arson attack was one of the darkest moments in the history of the anime industry. It took the lives of 36 talented individuals, left many others scarred, and shook an entire community. But from this tragedy came a powerful message of resilience, unity, and hope. One of the most important lessons from this event is the need for greater awareness of mental health issues, and the importance of intervention before they escalate into violence. Shinji Aoba's actions were fueled by delusions and personal grievances, yet there were few systems in place to identify and address the warning signs before disaster struck. This case has sparked discussions in Japan about how to better support individuals struggling with isolation and mental illness. Another key takeaway is the importance of workplace safety and emergency preparedness. Kyoto Animation Studio One had only one main exit, which became a deadly trap when the fire spread. After the attack, many businesses in Japan and around the world reviewed their fire escape routes, evacuation plans, and building safety measures. The response to this tragedy also demonstrated the power of global solidarity. Fans, industry professionals, and even people outside the anime community came together to support Kyoto Animation, proving that art has the ability to connect people beyond borders. The donations, tributes, and messages of encouragement played a crucial role in helping the studio move forward. Despite the unimaginable loss, Kyoto Animation has continued its work, honoring the memory of those who were lost. Each new project they release is not just another anime. It is a testament to the strength and dedication of a company that refused to be defeated by tragedy. The Kyoto Animation arson attack will never be forgotten. It stands as a reminder of the fragility of life, the need to protect creative spaces, and the enduring power of art. Even in the face of great darkness, the light of Kyoto Animation continues to shine, inspiring future generations of artists and storytellers.